Good morning, students. Today we are starting a new course, Microeconomics. So this is your first paper for the first semester UG program of Calicut University. And for every course, for every subject, there are some basic principles. You are starting your study of economics at the graduation level, and so economics also has its own certain basic principles and ideas. And today we will discuss some of the basic principles of economics, and then we will also talk about microeconomics, its nature and scope. Okay, so the first principle that is underlying in almost all economic subjects is of trade-offs. Trade-offs means that when you are selecting one option, you have to forego something else. Okay, so if you are going to purchase an ice cream with a certain sum of rupees, then there is something else that you are sacrificing. This is called trade-off. Okay, something that you have to sacrifice in order to achieve something. This is called trade-offs. So trade-off is there in almost all economic activities. Whether you are spending your money, whether you are spending your time, there is a trade-off. There is a trade-off for everything, and this trade-off concept is quite important in economics also. Whether it is microeconomics, macroeconomics, or any other branch of economics. Then the second one is with regard to opportunity cost. Opportunity cost and trade-offs are quite related subjects. Okay, opportunity cost is the next best alternative that has been foregone. So with a given sum of rupees, you can watch a movie or you can have your lunch at a restaurant. So if you are opting to watch a movie, you are sacrificing the lunch that you could have had with the same sum of rupees. So here the opportunity cost of watching a movie is the lunch that you have foregone. This is the concept of opportunity cost. So opportunity cost is also there in every economic activity. When you are selecting one, you are sacrificing something else. So the cost of the first is the second opportunity that you are sacrificed. So this is the concept of opportunity cost. The third important principle is the principle of margin. In fact, economics says that rational people think of the margin or think at the margin. Okay? How you can improve from a given situation, or if you have produced 100 units, how you can produce 101st unit, or at what cost you can produce 101st unit. This is the concept of margin. That is a single unit increase from a certain point. This is margin, and margin is this marginal concept will be used many times in economics in case of cost, in case of revenue, in case of welfare. Everywhere we will be using this concept of margin. That is a unit increase from a given situation, or an infinitely small improvement from or change from a given situation. This is called margin. So this is another concept. And the fourth important principle is related to trade. Trade can make everyone better off. That is an important concept related to economics. We know that not everybody can produce everything that they want. We have to specialize in something. Okay, we cannot produce everything we have. So we specialize in some commodity or service that we are efficient at, and buy other commodities that we need for a living from other people who specialize in such commodities. So what happens is that we are trading commodity of specialization with some other commodity in which some other people is specialized. So what happens is that we are saving our time and effort by specializing in the commodity and trading. So actually both people involved in the trade will be better off. This is the concept of trade can make people better off. Okay. The next important principle is with regard to incentives. Okay, economics says that people respond to incentives. Okay, people respond to incentives. That is, they will work harder if you give them incentive. If you are paid a higher wage, then you are likely to work harder and likely to be more productive. Okay, if you are given more marks, you are likely to work steady harder. This is the concept of incentives. Okay, so this incentive concept is at the basic of a capitalist economy. Okay, capitalism thrives through incentives. These are some of the basic principles of economics which you will find everywhere. Okay, and this understanding of these basic principles will be quite useful as you go through your study of economics at the UG level as well as the PG level. Okay, from this we are moving on to our specific course of study, which is microeconomics. Okay, and the first topic is of course the definition of microeconomics. We can define microeconomics as the study of small economic units. It can be firms, it can be consumers, or it can be any other small economic unit. Okay, so economics is a study of small individual units like pricing. It can be commodity pricing or factor pricing, it can be welfare, it can be consumer equilibrium, it can be market. So these are all small economic units which comes under the study of microeconomics. Okay, and so it is a study of small individual economic units. And now we have to go to the topic of nature of microeconomics. Nature of microeconomics means that there are three interrelated aspects to nature of microeconomics. First one, whether it is a science or art, whether it is positive in nature or normative in nature, or whether it uses deductive method or inductive method. We generally call economics as a social science because it mostly is related to social problems. Okay, but a beforehand conclusion that economics is a social science is just irrelevant. So we have to examine whether economics is really a science or an art. Okay, a subject becomes scientific when it is presented systematically, when the theories are presented in a systematic manner. In fact, the economic theories are presented in a systematic manner into different subjects, and in the subject itself we have different categories. So the economic theories are systematically presented, giving it a scientific nature. Okay, then another feature of science is that it should be able to be empirically tested. Okay, scientific principles should prove right when empirically tested. So in this respect, economics has some limitations because all the economic principles cannot be empirically tested, and this result, the test result, may not be universally applicable also. Some of the economic principles may be applicable to a particular region, a particular time, whereas it may not be applicable to another region or another time. So in this respect, economics does not have universality. It may not always be able to prove economic theories through empirical testing. So in this respect, economics is not a pure science. It tends more towards a social science. Another feature of science is that the scientific subjects can be tested in a laboratory. Okay, but the theories in economics cannot be tested in a laboratory because we are dealing with human beings, their behavior and their emotions, how they behave under different circumstances. These things cannot be tested in a laboratory. Okay, we can make empirical analysis how people respond in a different situation, but we cannot take people to a laboratory and give specific situations because it is abstracting from reality. Economics is actually a real science, and therefore laboratory experiments may not be practical in economics. So in this respect also, economics deviates from pure sciences. Okay, so we can see that economics is more of a social science than a science. Next one is with regard to the nature of economics, whether it is positive or normative. A subject becomes positive when it is highly descriptive, and it is normative when it is prescriptive in nature. Okay, and a positive subject is also non-judgmental in nature. There is no value judgments in a positive nature, positive subject. Whereas in a normative subject, there is value judgment. There is involvement of value judgments. For example, with regard to the farm bills, okay, some economists may say that farm bills are not good for the farmers, and some economists may say that farm bills will eliminate intermediaries. Okay, so here farm bills will eliminate intermediaries is a is descriptive in nature. Okay, because it is aimed at eliminating intermediaries and the intermediaries that are existent in market. So it definitely eliminates intermediaries. But this statement does not say whether eliminating intermediaries will lead to increased welfare for the farmers. So if it is normative in nature, it will say whether it is beneficial to the farmers. Okay, when we say that farm bills is beneficial to the farmers or it is not beneficial to the farmers, we are stepping into normative area of the subject. Okay, so farm bills will assure increased prices for the farmers. This is a normative statement. Or farm bills will make farmers dependent on the corporates. This is also a normative statement. Okay, and therefore farm bills has to be encouraged or farm bills has to be abolished. This is a normative statement. So it involves value judgments. It looks farm bills from the point of view of the farmers and comes at the conclusion that farm bills are good for the farmers or farm bills are not good for the farmers. Okay, so it is prescriptive. It is prescribing whether farm bill has to be implemented or abolished. So in this respect, the question becomes normative. But when we are saying that farm bills will abolish intermediaries, it is descriptive in nature, it is positive. And economics can be both prescriptive as well as descriptive, or economics can be positive as well as normative. Okay, it depends upon the person who is using it. A person can use economics for descriptive purposes as well as for prescriptive purposes. Okay. Then the third aspect related to nature of economics is use of methodology, deductive methodology and inductive methodology. In deduction, we go from general to particular, and induction we go from particular to general. For example, we are collecting data from 100 people with regard to their consumption. We see that the price of a commodity has increased over the last 1 month, and we approach these 100 people and ask one by one whether they have increased consumption or decreased consumption after the price rise. And we find that 95 of the 100 people have reduced their consumption after prices have increased. So we can see that because 95% of the people have reduced consumption after an increase in price, we can generalize that an increase in price usually leads to reduction in consumption or reduction in demand. So in this case, we are moving from particular problems to a general statement. Okay, from the 95 or 100 samples that we are collected, we analyze the problem and arrive at the general conclusion that increase in prices leads to reduction in quantity demanded. Okay, this is an example for inductive method. And at the same time, we can have prior information or prior logic about certain behaviors. Okay, we know that increased prices leads to more supply, more quantity supply. Okay, this is from the part of the producers. So this is a general statement, and therefore we can say that if we increase the price of agriculture commodities, their supply is likely to be increased. This is a movement from a general statement to a particular case. So this is a deductive method. In fact, both the deductive and inductive methods are used in economics. So it has both the nature of deductive as well as inductive methodologies. Okay. Now we'll discuss about the scope of economics. The scope of economics is related, in fact, to the subject matter of economics. In economics, we study microeconomics. We study about different things. Okay. First one is about commodity pricing. Class on commodity pricing. Second is factor pricing. Third one is welfare theory. Welfare theory. Okay. The scope of economics can be broadly divided into these three areas: commodity pricing, factor pricing, and welfare theory. Commodity pricing is related to the forces of demand and supply, consumers and producers. Okay. It is the producers who produce commodities or who supply the commodities, and it is the consumers who demand the commodities. It is through the interaction of supply and demand that price is determined. Commodity prices determined. Okay. Producers incur a cost in producing the commodities, and they price the commodity at a certain level, and consumers, if they find it attractive enough, go and buy it. Okay, this is the interaction. So this interaction determines commodity pricing. This is an important part of microeconomics. How prices of different commodities are determined. Okay, it may be related to cost, it may be related to demand, it may be related to supply, or it may be related to some other aspects also, like exceptional circumstances, like expectations or climate, etc. also. Okay, so commodity pricing is one important area of economics. The second one is factor pricing. What is a factor? A factor of production is something that assists in producing a final commodity. There are mainly four factors of production: land, labor, capital, and organization. Microeconomics also studies how the price of these different factors are determined. Okay, what has to be the price of labor, that is wage rate? What has to be the price of land or factories, that is rent? What has to be the price of capital, that is interest rate? And what has to be the price of entrepreneurship, which is profit? So this also forms a part of microeconomics, and we study this under the topic of distribution. Okay, distribution. This is the second important aspect or area of microeconomics. Okay, factor pricing. And the third area that we will be dealing in microeconomics is welfare theory. Okay, welfare theory. Welfare theory studies how people can optimize their consumption or production. Okay, how welfare of a particular people or a group of people can be increased. Okay, this is a very normative subject, because welfare theory is highly normative because it is also prescriptive. It is also policy related. Okay, this is the third area. In here we will be dealing how the welfare of particular groups or people can be increased, whether a policy will increase welfare or reduce welfare, and therefore that policy is to be implemented or not. Okay, this is the third scope of economics. So first one is commodity pricing, second one is factor pricing, and third one is welfare theory. Okay. So today we have discussed about the nature of economics and the scope of economics. Under nature of economics comes whether the subject is science or art. Second one, whether it is positive in nature or normative in nature. And third one, whether it uses inductive or deductive methodology. Then we discuss about the scope of economics, that this is mainly the subject matter of economics. The scope of economics studies commodity pricing, factor pricing, and welfare theory. Also, so that's it for the day. Thank you.